all of our international friends on here as well. Just gives us a little bit of guideline. And because our presenter tonight is an attorney, she likes to know kind of who her audience is, so to speak. So definitely put in there where you're from. It's great to see a multitude of people. Oh, hey, Miss Sherry. Nevada got some snow. You can keep it. Wisconsin doesn't need it. So just saying. Oh, we got some Texas. Nice and warm down there. Yeah, today's been a chilly day here in Wisconsin. It was a rainy and overcast, so we know fall is in the house. And as
Upper five?
beautiful as fall is here in Wisconsin, we love it. I want it to be at least sunny in fall. Good hoodie weather. That's what we like to have here. So all the good things. So as you're chiming in, put where you're from. We just love to see that. We'll kick off here in just a minute. Give everybody a moment to get through it all. Tonight's topic is one that I think every business owner, especially small business owner, definitely takes to heart is when we're talking about reviews and every decision that we make, and we just take a deep breath and we pause and we go, okay, here it comes. We know that the Karen is going to hop on, and so we can all relate to it. I know I personally had a big one blow up a couple years ago over an abrasion on a dog. And we had 38 hours of hell online to the point police had to be called because there was some cyber threats of physical bodily harm to myself and my facility. And then someone found my home address, and it was just a 38-hour shit show, to say the least. So this topic is near and dear to me after having survived that. And I do say survived because that is exactly what transpires. So, all right, as you all keep chiming in and on and telling us where you are located, we will get the ball rolling. I'm going to mute my chat here. All right. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to April Goodwin. She's the founding attorney at Goodwin Law Firm. I met her this summer at the IACP conference. She gave a presentation and I went, holy crap, this is good knowledge that we in the dog world especially need an attorney like April to break it down for us, both as a dog owner and as a facility owner and as a dog trainer. We don't know what we don't know, and the rules are changing, and how things are looked at from a law perspective are always interesting and intriguing. As somebody who minored in business law, I was glued to April and everything she spoke about, to the point that I invited her to the Dog Handler Academy Summit as well. And on her surveys that we asked people to tell us, hey, how did our speakers do? On April's, everybody said, not enough time with the speaker, not enough time with the speaker, not enough time with the speaker. And we went, okay, we hear you. And so we brought April on for a part two uh, to her speaking engagement with us. So without further ado, this is April Goodwin. We're going to be talking about those lovely online reviews and the cyber attacks that we can feel from our clients or non-clients as they so become as well. We love those people who just don't even use our services but want to form an opinion and give us a little negative shout out. So without further ado, Miss April, go ahead and take the stage. I'll mute myself and pop in and out as we need to add a little bit more context.
Thank you, Eve, and thanks for having me back. And yes, this is a great topic, one of interest to everybody. I can tell you, even in my lawyer networking groups, fake reviews, how to deal with them, negative reviews are a very common topic of conversation. And then they also hold over us. I'll send a complaint to the bar association or sue you for malpractice or something if you don't do what I want, and then also write you bad reviews. So, get the trifecta there. But bad reviews, really, I'll be honest with you, as a small business owner, if I didn't do anything wrong, which hopefully I didn't. I'm not worried about malpractice claim, or so I have insurance, bar complaint, whatever. I feel good about that. But a review, that's yeah, a little terrifying, and people can hold you hostage for that, and it really sucks. So, it's just the way of the world, and I could go on and on my rants about um what the companies are doing, and to really, I think, make themselves hopefully irrelevant to a degree, but we all use them. I use reviews too. I try to take them with grains of salt, but because of knowing that, but we all look at that. Affects all businesses. You can have your one-off who's just a pissed off, client or former customer or not. You can have, people who are fake, they're anonymous. You have no idea who they are, or maybe you do have an idea who they are, a disgruntled employee, the spouse of a disgruntled employee, anybody, could be anybody, a competitor even. And then there's, obviously false reviews that they really are customer or client, or were, but they've making up a bunch of stuff or blowing things out of proportion. Uh, Sherry said, people get insane. They do. I'm not telling you guys anything when I tell you that I know that in your industry in particular, or anything to do with pets, people are insane anyway. They just there's a mom mentality that happens. I've just see it all the time. Um, uh, yeah, just that making things up. And then also, you've got like, nowadays, people review bombing, and like I said, gathering their mob, doxing, can really, go from online to in person, or, stalking, even in the worst case scenario, threats, finding out where you live. And nowadays it's not even just, okay, you did something to a dog. I think you did something to a dog or a cat or an employee or whatever that I don't like. But, your politics aren't what I like. And so I'm going to do that. It's just really gotten insane out there. So what can you do to, when this happens, and it is inevitable. I've got, some bad reviews myself. Uh, the joke is that a lawyer with all good reviews, you really shouldn't trust that, because it's our job to piss half the people off that we deal with. But um, really, and that's, some of yours too. I mean, trainers, or any kind of, business like that you have, that you're also, I'm sure, telling people that things they don't want to hear. So what can you do? A lot of people want to know, like, how do you remove these false reviews or fake reviews? It's not easy. I can tell you, I had a review where it was 3 stars, and somebody came to our, Facebook page. No, on Facebook, it was Google, and reviewed it like we were a restaurant. Like, they clearly were on the wrong place. It's called the Goodwin Firm. Does not sound like a restaurant, but hey, you never know. And I had a screenshot of it for years, and I tried to find it for this and I couldn't find it. But basically talking about mediocre food, which if they had had food that I made, I would have gotten 1 star. But it was and that, good atmosphere, something like that. I don't know. Well, the Florida bar restricts, and most, for attorneys, they restrict what we can write back, even to non-clients, especially at that time. So I said, okay, well, this is clearly nothing to do with me. Reported to Google, reported to Google. Google didn't do anything for months. So I went, and this was the first actually bad review that I had. So it was only 3 stars, but you kind of freak out the first one you get. So I thought, you know what? I know the bar says I'm not supposed to respond to this stuff, but let them come at me. Let me be the example of why this rule is stupid. So then I wrote a smartass response of, like, thank you very much, but you probably didn't enjoy the food because we're a law firm and not a restaurant, and maybe you had the yogurts that were sitting in the refrigerator for too long in the office, or something like that. And of course, you know, I shared that and got some good responses. And then that's when Google took it down finally. So that's why I don't have it anymore. But it's very hard. So you've got Google, you've got Yelp, you've got Facebook. You're gonna have, other, specific, to your industry, sites. You've got Nextdoor, you've got the Better Business Bureau. The there are all kinds of other random, websites out there that also, do it, that people find that are obscure, and will do reviews on there. The things that, if it's truly false, let's say they are not, you don't know who this person is, or you know who it is, and they're not a client, they're not a customer. You know it's a former employee or employee's family member, or it's a competitor, or just, whatever. That is your best bet, is to claim that, or, let them know that the employee or that the reviewer is not, a client or customer. Google in particular, if they are a client or customer, they're going to leave it up. They are, and so then they'll go back to that person and they'll say, well, prove that you really are a client or a customer. It is, they are big on just, good, bad, or indifferent. They're going to leave up anything that they think is a legit review from a legitimate customer. Even if it's full of lies, they're going to leave it up. And from what I found, that is true in most cases. Facebook actually has an option to turn off all your reviews. You can't just delete one, but you can turn them all off. So if you're getting review bombed or things like that, you can do that. I'm not going to tell you how to do that, because by the time that happens, who knows, they may have changed it. Honestly, Google, or whatever, ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT, or whatever it is, how to do it. And at that time, they'll tell you where to go and how to do those things. But that's one thing you can do. But for the most part, these review sites pride themselves on not um, being part of the editorial process as to what's true and what's not true. They are immune from defamation under the Communication Decency Act. They are immune from being sued for defamation, and actually being sued. They can, well, in America, you can sue anybody for anything, but it will very much get dismissed very quickly, because the federal law treats them as the method by which maybe defamation is delivered, but not the actual defamers. So that is, you're not going to have any luck suing them, and they know that. And so there's not much they can do. One thing they can get sued for is copyright and trademark, and I will talk about using that later as a tool to get rid of some of these things, and it's actually pretty helpful in that. So the other things you can use is, it's a conflict of interest. So example, it's a disgruntled employee, a competitor, and if you let them know, then them being Google, Facebook, whoever, that is the situation, then they are more likely to review it for that. Again, they're not actually a client or a customer, so that's, part of that. Harassment or hate, as they define it, as those companies define it. Violation of privacy, again, you're talking doxing, but rarely will they remove like verifiably false statements, even though you have documentation. So I have here, this is my favorite. I'm going to share my screen here.
So
All
April, when
time.
you're saying
Yes.
so when you click on it and you say, you ask them to remove it and they give you those drop downs. So those are the items that you're choosing
Right.
is whatever opportunities they give you, I guess, for lack of
Right.
a
Right.
word, for saying that it's false is the key one.
Right, yeah, that they're not a customer or client, that this is
Gotcha.
not, and that might be, sometimes they call it a conflict of interest. But if it's just, I don't agree with it or something like that, the chances of them removing it, even if you have verifiable evidence that what they say is false, are slim, because again, the web host or whoever it is, the website, they don't face any kind of liability whatsoever for letting people spew all kinds of false stuff. I mean, look at Facebook, the Facebook wouldn't exist if people weren't putting fake stuff on there.
Very good
So
point.
sarcasm or not, or whatever, satire. But yeah, so that is true. Yeah, they give you a drop down to select. Usually they will do that. So this is not mine. The Florida bar would never let me respond to this, but this is a one of my all-time favorites. So this is a I don't know how I came across it. It was local here, to a computer repair store. And this guy, complained whatever. But this is what he said, um, and this I think got shared pretty wide, but he used it, to explain, why, step by step in a very smart ass funny way, which I appreciated. The And then he had like links and things like that to um the service logs that proved it. And I'm sure he did that after Google wouldn't remove it. So there is if you're able, to uh respond. I'll talk about that too, the wisdom of that. But from a legal perspective, what I want to tell you is when you if you decide to do a response, um, make sure that you are not defaming in response. And what defamation is, bottom line is, it's got to be true. Opinions are not defamation. So you're an asshole. One person might think that, another person might not. That's an opinion. But if you say you're a criminal, well, that's something that can be, um, proven of whether or not they've been, convicted of a crime. So that is, and convicted is the test. I had a client, it was a pet case, who called her ex who had taken her dogs, or actually, as it turned out, his dogs back. But and she had a whole page dedicated to, bring the dogs home and everything, a Facebook page. And she called him a felon because she believed what he had done was a felony. And the judge said, yeah, he's not a convicted felon. And therefore, and by the way, the dogs are his, and therefore, she, you defamed him. So, and she got a pretty big judgment against her because of that. Yeah, that was fun, and that is sarcasm. That was not a fun case, but so you want to make sure when you're responding that you're doing it correctly, and obviously you want to be careful with, you know, my advice is always your client or your audience for response, if you do them, is um are the other people watching, right? Your other customers, your other potential customers, and nobody wants to go anywhere where there's a bunch of drama or a flame war or anything like that. So that's what I really want people, to be aware of. If that is, make sure you don't turn into defamation yourself, and then also that it is, use that as, a branding opportunity, perhaps, or a way to set the record straight. You'll never go wrong by having something simple saying like, let's, we don't, use this, or please email me and, at this email and we can review our records, or, we're sorry to hear this, or, we don't, do use shock collars. We use this instead, things like that. If it's really false and harmful, you can say those things, but then you can also say like, we've requested that Google or whoever, review this post, or this review per, their policies. You don't ever want to admit any kind of fault, of course, even if it exists. Don't do that in writing. I don't care if it's on Facebook or Google or in an email or a text to the person. Don't do that. Um, you want to, don't, again, diagnose or debate, details and go back and forth online. Do not threaten legal action. You'll hear from my lawyer, things like that. Those kinds of things are best kept, leave those to the lawyers, leave that to the, private conversations. The Also, things you want to submit when you submit for a false review is make sure you have the web, the URL, timestamps. If you do have any evidence, like say it is like a former employee or the spouse, or whoever of a former employee, you would have some evidence of that. So you would want to submit those things as well. Some of these review sites that are the lesser known ones, well, Yelp does this too, or they used to anyway. I don't know if they still do. They will, once you get a bad review, you'll start getting, if you've ever had this happen, getting emails, not from the site so much, but from others, reputation management or whatever, spam. You'll start getting spam. But some of the actual review sites, Yelp, like I said, one is called Piss Consumer that I know about because my client went to war with them, and now there's bad stuff about me on that because the other side put a bunch of bad crap about. It was so funny too because it was stuff that I don't like, kinds of law I don't even practice. They were saying that I like fake reviews, made up. She ruined my landlord tenant case. Okay, well I don't. I guess I did because I don't do that kind of law, so I would ruin that. But that is those types of things. And so what they will do then is they kind of boost in their algorithm those bad reviews. And then you'll get contacted to buy their reputation management services. And so for, whatever cost for our reputation management services, we can really help you out on this bad review. It might be a different name, different company name, but that's who, they're with. And then what they do is then if you buy their services, then they push it down further in their algorithm. They won't delete it, but they'll hide it on page 10 or whatever. There's science to how many pages people go and look at these things. And then if you stop paying or you cancel the service, then boop, there it goes right back up again. So you want to be careful with those things too. And I do have a little handout I can give to everybody about how to spot a good or bad reputation management service and what they do, what they don't do, because a lot of people get ripped off, and I hate to see that. Another thing is what you don't want to do is if it is a back and forth with them. Remember, the algorithm loves drama. You can ignore. Some people just do that. I tend to do that. Other than the one funny one I did, also respond to the good ones. The bad ones, I just I ignore. Or if it's truly fake, I'll seek to have it removed. But the best thing you can do is to bury a bunch of bury a bad review or a couple bad reviews with a bunch of good reviews. Ask friends, ask family, ask former clients, to current clients, whoever, to write good reviews. Don't ask them to do it all at once. You got to stage it, because at least with Google, they know everything. So they keep track of like, oh, all of a sudden you're getting a bunch of new reviews. To them, that's not natural. So I've had people tell me they wrote me good reviews and it doesn't show up. If they screenshot it, then I think you can contact Google somehow and let them know, to have them screenshot their good review. But then, and so that's really the best way to do it, is to have people do it. Responding to it can even, I'm sorry this happened, or contesting it, even how much funny or whatever it is, that can again feed the algorithm and boost it up a little bit higher. Not so much like in Google, they're going to be there, but in on Facebook, it might show up in somebody's people's feeds more. And if it's one of these off sites, Yelp, whatever, it will show up higher in the Google search results. So there are a lot of people who just don't respond to the bad reviews at all. And that's why.
Should we respond to the good reviews then to like help bump that algorithm?
Yeah, that
Okay.
should help. That does help. I think that's a polite thing to do as well, especially if you weren't expecting it or something. And again,
Sure.
your audience isn't the person who left you the review, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
Your audience is whoever else is looking at that, right? Whoever comes, the next person who Googles you or goes on Facebook or wherever and sees those reviews, that's your audience. So I think that's they'll see that's a nice thing to do. Oh, thank you. We really appreciated this. And, Fido is, pleasure working with him or whatever. So
Beautiful.
that is something that is, yeah. And it does help too. Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. The and the other thing that is, and I know, I've talked about this, when I was at the summer or at the conference about this, and something else you don't want to do is, and this is preemptive to bad reviews, but leaving a bad review, or when somebody leaves a bad review, all of a sudden you want to do a knee-jerk reaction, and so or not even knee-jerk, just something, anything to keep this from happening again. So a lot of things, one of the things people look at is, oh, you want an NDA, right, or a non-disparagement clause. An NDA is one thing, non-disclosure confidentiality. A non-disparagement is, you can say good things, but you can't say bad things. The FTC, Federal Trade Commission, is cracking down on those. There is a law now on the books about that. And I do have a handout I can give about that too. It is, they tend to go after some bigger players. They tend to go after them. If you, there's a company they went after that said, we're going to sue you for $25,000 if you leave us a bad review. Right. Things like that. I had actually a client who, when they were talking about this law, his business was cited in the congressional hearings for a reason this law was needed. I never did this, but when I came on his legal team, he was actively suing clients who left bad reviews. And by the way, he was shady. He totally deserved all those bad reviews. He was good for business because he got sued, and he did sue a lot, but he was pretty shady. And so he ended up actually getting sued by the FTC for was a weight loss company and for false claims, but he got on their radar because of the bad reviews, the gag clauses. But he was filing lawsuits against people. So as a deterrent, it's not too bad of an idea if it's carefully worded, but as a you need to be careful about how strongly you word that and how you word it. And again, I'd recommend, again, you just use it as a deterrent, not as actually, pursuing people if they do it. Now you can pursue them for other things, but not using that clause as part of it.
Probably
Could
more
come
of a
back and bite you.
deterrent for your ex-employees than anything else.
That's different. That is different.
Okay.
And absolutely. So ex-employees, it is very common. It's common in any kind of settlement. And I can, we'll talk about that too. Like but any kind of settlement to have a non-disclosure and a non-disparagement. I put them, I don't care, dog custody, dog bite, business case, employment case, any of them. We have non-disparagement cases in our non-disparagement clauses in those. So you can absolutely have that even without a settlement for an ex-employee. You would want it to do it at the time that they sign, that they become employee, stacks of papers you give them when they sign up to be an employee or when you hire them, because when they're pissed off at you because you fired them or they quit, they're probably not going to sign anything. Unless you do
I
like a
do
severance
remind
package
them.
or something like that, then you can make
Yes.
it as a condition
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
Yep. I
Um,
do remind them when they leave me, when they have to sign off their exit paperwork, that they've returned their shirts and whatever. I have two little things. And don't forget, you signed a non-disparagement agreement, da da
yeah.
da, and they initial next to that. And sometimes they are like, well, I'm not initialing it. That's fine. You already signed it with the employee handbook. This
Yes,
was just your
exactly.
reminder.
Exactly. And that is absolutely legal, and it's very common to have that. It's actually wise, as I advise my employer clients to have that as a policy that they should not say anything bad about the company while or their clients or customers or whatever they are while they are employed there and afterwards as well. Yeah, that's very common. You can put some teeth into that, whether that's enforceable depends on, I guess, how much money your clients have, but you can get injunctions and things like, not your clients, your employees, but you can get injunctions and things like that, even if you can't get money. So get things removed, get them to stop, or face consequences, including jail. That same client ended up in jail he's a good defamation client for me too, both getting sued and suing for it. And he actually would not stop complaining about his HOA, even though he had an injunction against him to say that he shouldn't. And he ended up in jail for 30 days because of it. So that can happen. Um, the and that was contempt because it was a contempt charge. So yeah, absolutely. If you can do it for employees, former employees, again, you want to have them sign it when they get hired, but that is something you can do. And it's common. The if the next thing you can do is you can, if you don't want to, or even if you do, if it doesn't stop, you can have a cease and desist letter sent. Be very careful with this. I tell my defamation clients, like, look, it is hit or miss with them. I have had them work, absolutely. If they are a media, if it's like, let's say it's, and I don't really even have this in my outline to talk about much because it's a whole other thing, but you could have a bad news story, fake news, legitimate media, or a blog counts actually as media, and have that be, written about you and false. And I've had clients who have been on both ends. Either they created a blog and went off on somebody, or somebody created a blog about them, or a whole website. And they could get deemed to be the media, which, because defamation is a First Amendment issue, they often they do have more protection. So them, you do have to send a cease and desist letter. You have to give them advance notice. But everybody else, you don't have to send a cease and desist letter before you file a lawsuit, but sometimes it can help. Sometimes what I have found in online bad reviews, though, especially if somebody is just like on social media, just nonstop, finding all your public posts, you know, um, finding your employees' public posts, finding, other, your personal page, all that kind of stuff, and just going on and on and on. Your cease and desist letter will end up being, and this has happened to me, as the lawyer, written a cease and desist letter, and then it ends up, on their Facebook page, and they're ridiculing that. There's an episode of Seinfeld where that happened to him, and someone's defaming him, and he writes a letter, and she's a stand-up comic, so she gets up and reads the cease and desist letter and makes fun of him and tears it apart online. It's hit or miss. They're already trashing you, then maybe it'll work, maybe it'll scare them, maybe they'll get a lawyer. She said, "What are you doing? Shut up." But it is something you need to be careful with. And also, if you do it yourself, you want to make sure that, again, same thing as with writing response to the review, that you're not defaming, that you're being professional. Always assume, two things. One, that you're going to have it read back to you in a deposition or in front of a judge. And then two, that it's going to end up online and, passed around and go viral. So you want to look like the better person. As I always say, at least look like the better person. Even if you're not, you want to come off that way. So same thing with text, screenshots, emails, all of that can end up online or as evidence. I do not believe in threatening a lawsuit unless I'm actually prepared to do it, whether it's on my behalf or on my client's behalf. That's me. Other lawyers do it all the time. People do it all the time. I think it weakens you, and it makes it look like, all you do is threaten, and you're all bark and no bite, no pun intended. So you don't want to, you want to be careful with that. That doesn't mean that different facts come to light or money becomes an issue and you change your mind there, but you just want to be careful about that. They can help though. It can be, you ask them to remove it. You ask them to, you say you're going to sue them. If they don't, you can have a retraction. You can ask them to write a retraction. It's essentially a demand letter demanding like that you do this or we're going to sue you. The do this part of that is stop, remove the posts or whatever, the review. Again, it can be money, but it can be no money whatsoever. You're just asking them to do something or to stop doing something, and you can do that. It is, again, they can backfire, because it could be, that can be what goes viral. It's the complaining about it ends up, they call it the Streisand effect online. Like, Barbara Streisand complained about something and nobody was paying attention to it till she complained about it. And then all of a sudden it goes viral. So you gotta be careful with that too. And look, anything can go. I mean, just you think, well, I'm not going to go viral. I'm not Barbara Streisand. As we know, anybody can go viral for anything, and who knows? We wish we could, for marketing purposes, predict what that would be, but we never can. The tone is you want to be factual, you want to be concise. You want to your tone is, yes, matter of fact and slightly threatening. But it is not, you want to incentivize them to do what you want them to do, because that's the next step is, filing a lawsuit. And again, I always include exact quotes, and, I come with my receipts and I show that whenever I do any kind of demand letter, including a cease and desist. One interesting kind of letter and or way to get it removed is intellectual property protections. So trademarks and copyright. So trademark is you have to have that registered with the trademark in order to be able to claim that. A copyright, you take a photo, it can be a photo of somebody else. You own the copyright to that. So, and the creator automatically doesn't have to register, owns the copyright. If you want to sue, you have to have it registered. But to threaten to take it down, you don't have to do that. And I don't, probably if you're active on social media, especially if you're super active, you've seen that. You may have even had one against you that, Facebook or whoever, Instagram says, oh, somebody claimed copyright, to this because you shared a meme or something. That is something, but if somebody's making money off of that, or if they are, uh, uh, even if they're not making money, they're using that to defame you. That is a very common way to get, some of these bad, posts and things like that. It really won't work so much for like a Google review, but it could work for like Facebook post and full on quote cancellation or something like that. If they're using your logo, if they're using your picture, anything like that, that is, if it's something that you own the copyright to, or, maybe if your employee took the picture, then, or you had the logo created for you, you still own the copyright. But somebody who owns the copyright, but you can claim that, and more than harassment, I think probably faster than a racial slur or a misogyny or anything like that. Facebook and Instagram, all of them will take that stuff down. They take that stuff seriously because that is the one place where they can get sued after they've been warned. They
So
have.
if it's a staff member who took a picture of a dog, you posted it to your business Facebook
Mhm.
page, and then now someone is like, "Oh, see where my dog is being bit in the butt in the background," or something,
Yep.
something like that. So that is where that copyright piece would come
Yep.
into play.
Sure, it can be a picture of their dog, full on their dog, a picture of them. But if you own the copyright, meaning, yeah, a staff member took it or you took it or whatever, and they can't use that. And that's a way to get those things down. They won't get punished for it, other than the
But
fact
it'll
that
get
it'll get taken
removed.
down. So I have had, success with that and getting clients. There's a special, and again, that's one of those things, just Google or search on Facebook or whatever the platform is, how to make a copyright or a trademark claim. There's a special kind of, they call it a takedown letter that you can write. Those go more to if they don't do anything. Amazon's another one. If they have, if somebody's putting a T-shirt with your face on it or whatever, then that's another one. But you look it up and on their websites, and they all tell you like how to do it. If it's a one-off of
Interesting.
those, there's a letter called a DMCA letter, that is unauthorized use of your photos, class materials. So if they like release, a former employee or something releases your intellectual property, but you can stop like lookalike pages, fake profiles, things like that. Parody is protected somewhat, but it's really got to be parody, not done to take you down. So
Gotcha.
that's, yeah, absolutely is a good way to do that. A lot of like I've had like homeowner association clients who talk about crazy, some of their people are everybody in the association is crazy. But we get, that they put the logo of the association. Well, the association, even if you're a member of it, the association is a different entity and it owns that logo, and it can be taken down. So there's ways to do that. So and you can do both. You can do defamation and uh, the intellectual property protection, strategies. Defamation, the big thing is the whole definition of it is false. So if there's a truth to it, then it's not. The other thing you remember, if you sue for defamation, probably all remember the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. That was crazy because all this personal stuff came in. Reputation is at stake. So that means if you're saying, well, they ruined my good reputation, and maybe your reputation is as good as you think it is, all that stuff comes out. Now, if it's for business, your personal stuff probably won't come out, but if you sue personally, then it will. And that's one of the rare kinds of cases where that kind of like character evidence can come in. So it can get kind of messy. You want to remember that. That's if it goes to trial and stuff like that. That's going way down the line. Um, again, defamation, you can't sue Facebook or whatever. If you do, it'll get kicked out. The Another thing, another legal way is what's called tortious interference with a business relationship, or a tortious interference with a contract. So this is how my one client ended up in jail, actually. And that is it is when there is a uh, business relationship or a contract, and the person who's making, these statements, they know of it, or they know that's a potential client, even they know it's your target market or whatever. So let's say it's a wedding venue and they go to all the, a wedding, they post something, they tag every wedding, planner in town, and say, this wedding venue is, doesn't, it's leaks and is moldy and, whatever. Or, that is not just defamation, possibly, but even if it's true, they are purposely trying to interfere with the business. And so by doing that in a more intentional and purposeful way, even if it's true, that is something that can be actionable as well. Now, these are lawsuits. Again, it can be part of a demand letter or cease and desist. But it's, got to have the, will and the money to pursue litigation, which isn't always, what you want. What you want more is probably, how do I keep from getting to that point and escalating to that point? But sometimes,
Yeah.
if it's hurting your business enough, it is worth it. If you want to
So
save
like
all
if
your,
somebody posts Eve sucks, don't ever buy her shit on their
yeah,
personal page, that's one thing. But if they post that on the local dog park page,
yes,
then that's where
yeah,
that would come into play.
that would come. And that's a good way to put it too, because that is not, so Eve sucks is an opinion, all right?
Correct.
So it might not be defamation, but if they tell everybody that with the intent of you not getting business, you don't necessarily have to prove intent, but you got to be able to connect the dots at least somewhat. But if you do that, then that is, then that's interference with your business relationships, and you can't do that. Same as like a contract, if you have kind of slight subject, but similar thing as if you hire somebody who has a non-compete and you hire them, you can get sued for interfering with that non-compete if you knew about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I
Yeah.
know of a couple trainers that's happened to, a couple
Yep.
businesses where they hired a trainer not knowing that they had a non-compete, and then they got drug into the mud with it. So,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So that is, well, you can get sued for it. Yeah. Even if you didn't know, but you hopefully get
right.
out of it quicker. But yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes. So it's kind of the same. It's the same thing. It doesn't have to be a contract. It's just a known business relationship. So, like I said, a wedding, uh, you're trashing a wedding, photographer and you tag every wedding event planner in town. That's, even if it's true, even if it's just opinion, that's interference. And the same kind of remedies apply as far as what you can get as the one suing, of getting it taken down, getting an injunction, getting money, your damages, all of those things. You do have to prove your damages a little bit more than you do with defamation, but a lot of them are kind of nebulous anyway. It's like, well, I don't know how many people saw that and didn't hire me, but you have to at least be able to give some information to an expert witness who can extrapolate that or whatever. The evidence preservation. So even from the beginning, if you're not going to, you don't even know whether you're going to sue or not. Screenshots, save them somewhere other than your phone, or like, if you're an employee or something, and or on your work email that you don't own the email address because you might not work there anymore. Things like that, not just on a hard drive where it might crash, Google Photos or Google Drive or something like that is going to be around. Uh, Multiple places is fine. But don't count on, I will tell you, like texts and things like that, your phone company, 90 days, they can get them. The actual texts. So that is, it, and sometimes they can't even get those, or they can't get, like, if there's a picture that was texted, they can't always get that. So don't count on some third party, um, you know, entity having it there all the time. Like I said, like now this wasn't for evidence, but just for fun, that restaurant review I had, I thought, well, Google isn't going to take it down. I wish I would have screenshot it now so I could use it for things like this or just for fun. But actually I did, but I don't know where I put it. But that is but Google ended up taking it down. So, you never know if you're relying on a third party to have that. They don't. And like, if you have apps that you use for your business and you want that as some evidence, don't leave it in there, because I've had clients who, oh yeah, the portal app, it's all in there. Well, no, we don't. We only save that for 30 days. And this is by the time you get to a lawyer and you're suing, it's, however long later. Keep a timeline of things, get people's first names, last names, addresses, phone numbers. Um, emails, all those things. You want affidavits of friendly witnesses, which is a signed notarized statement. Get those things now. Just because they're your friend now doesn't mean they will be later. And things happen to people. They get sick, they move, they, pass, whatever. And affidavits aren't always admissible if that person is available as a witness, but if they're not, for some reason, like they're not here anymore, they've died or something, then that is, you can use that as a evidence. But also, if they change their mind, right? If they start lying, you've got the sworn under oath, which is what an affidavit is, statement that saying, what really happened, and that's closer in time to the event and when you were all still friends and friendly at least. So that's a very good idea to do too. I always, for any kind of case, they're witnesses, I get affidavits. Just because, Miss Mary loves you now does not mean when she's in, deposition, she won't, run you over, throw you under the bus and run you over and back up and run you back over again, because it happens.
Yeah.
Um,
I've used
yeah.
that for incident reports, right? Like at the time, the
Absolutely.
doggy scuffle didn't seem like a big deal. I still have the staff fill out an incident report. And then all of a sudden, 2 months down the road, the client's like, wow, I talked to your staffer and they actually
Uh-huh.
told me this. And I'll be like, really? Because this is what they filled out the day of.
Yeah, and the people lie, not just the people who make the statements, but other people lie about
Correct.
them too. Yeah, or they hear what they want to hear, or whatever it might be. But yeah, things change. They absolutely change. So you want to do that. If you can get the metadata from things, which so that would be, so if you save an email, Gmail is horrible for this, but if you have Outlook, you can, if you can save it as an actual Outlook file. And with that will come all the stuff that the IT people can look at of date, time, where did it really come from, all those kinds of things. So as much as that kind of stuff, whatever the site is, you can get. Again, you might have to Google or ask ChatGPT how to do that kind of stuff, or if you know somebody who knows it. But that is better than screenshots. Downloading all texts. There's apps. iMazing is one of them I know, where you have to do it through your computer, but you download all your text rather than screenshots of all of them. If you litigate your own case, you'll thank yourself, and if you have a lawyer, your lawyer will definitely thank you for doing that rather than doing a bunch of screenshots. Screenshots are better than nothing, but still. So those are the things that you want to make sure. Yeah, incident logs, all that kind of stuff, URLs, websites. You can go back in time and look at websites after they've been taken down. There's something called the Wayback Machine, but it only does certain, it kind of takes like not a screenshot, but like kind of a digital snapshot of it's, dynamic. You can go and you can click and you can kind of move around in a website. It's just, you look at Wayback Machine and it's the Internet Archive, but it doesn't do it of every website. It doesn't, I don't think there's any of mine. It kind of got to be, I guess, I don't know, big enough or whatever to do it. And it doesn't, it's not constant. But you can go back and see older versions of websites in case something's taken down, but that's not going to apply to social media posts. That's if, again, you've got somebody who's just gone all out and create a whole website about you, which, like I said, I've had, I've seen that happen. So that's, really, when you're talking about getting them taken down, what, your best bet really is the intellectual property. If there's anything like that, you can do that, even if it's a post you made and they screenshot or they share that, or something from your website. That is something, you can do. Like I said, I've shared memes and viral videos and just harmless stuff, but they, a news clip or something. I remember one time, and I got like, I don't know who it was claiming, oh, they're claiming, copyright on this. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I don't care, just as long as I can still post it. So that is something though that they will, if you flat out say like, take it down, I don't want it on there, they're much better about that. And other than that, like again, this person isn't me, or wasn't a client. And some of the social media posts you can, if it's harassment and stuff. Other than that, the best bet really you can do is, again, bury them with good reviews. That's usually
Sure.
my advice is if you're able to do that. But if it gets really harassing, like Eve was saying, like they're doxing you, they're showing up, you get death threats, you just, take down your Facebook, page, it's at that point. You're getting calls, you're getting, you can't get your business done. That's when you want to, escalate it to, cease and desist or even beyond. Otherwise it happens again. I personally, I see any kind of business with all like a whole lot of five, you only have a few reviews. That's one thing, but you've got like hundreds of reviews and they're all 5 stars. You paid for those. There's just no way you're not telling me you didn't pay for that stuff. So,
Somebody
everybody,
doesn't
and
like
in
you at
today's day
some
and age,
point, right?
everybody's got a complaint, and I try to turn lemon into lemonade. I also had a review where somebody complained that, I've had a couple, actually, one is on there now that they complained about, I think, my consultation fee, which I'm like, okay, well, now you're telling everybody they can't call me for free. I'm not complaining about that. And that it was an emotional support animal that I would not, or something like he said he just went online and got like basically he had a fake emotional support animal and I wasn't buying it. And he put
Yeah.
that, but I did take his money for the consultation. But that's the deal, and so, but yeah, he was in the consultation and found that out. And I thought, what, now you're putting, and I've used that in court. I've said, Judge, I take these emotional support animals seriously. And one of the few bad reviews I have is because someone who was mad I went and do a fake letter for him. So, I try to do that. And then somebody else got mad that I did a Humane Society event after I, threatened to sue them for her or whatever. It was stupid. But they can, I know, like I said, that one Piss Consumer website, I know there's bad stuff about me on there. It's all fake, but who goes on that? Now you all will, because I told you, but besides that, that's, and those were just, opposing parties, not even, my clients or anything. And that happens, but it's when it really gets bad out of hand and it's hurting you financially. That's when you really want to, and it is. That's when you escalate it to the lawsuit, part.
Yeah, so recently I've seen on social media where there was a gentleman, he had 2 dogs at a facility. He got a call that one of his dogs had been injured. The person wanted to take the dog to the vet. Um, he agreed. She took the dog to the vet, and then she said that she tried to call the vet to go pick it up. And the guy had said he didn't want the facility owner to pick up the dog. He would come pick it up or send somebody. And the guy actually released he recorded the phone conversations and released it on his Facebook page. So it's a phone conversation. How does that play into it? Because it wasn't it wasn't a written thing. It was a phone conversation.
Right.
And they're in a state where one party can record.
Yeah, I was my
But
first
now,
thought, yeah.
yeah, but now he's putting it on social media.
Right. So there is, so if it's defamation, one of the requirements is that, and somebody asked you about the anti-slap law, and I'm going to touch on that too, but the um the defamation is published. So that's one of the things. So if like they only tell you what they think of you, that doesn't count. But published doesn't just mean literally published, like, in writing or in a newspaper or even online. It means you've told somebody else, right? You've told a third party about it. So it could just be between, it could be anybody else that they tell. And that'd be defamation. Now, if they're just posting it's actual just a conversation online and it's not edited, it's what you said, and they did that, that could be a privacy violation depending what's on there. I would, if it's a social media site, I would complain about that as a privacy violation. That's what I would use.
Okay.
I don't know, especially like Facebook, they tend to be like, they take an axe to things instead of a scalpel. And because they're just so big, they can't, say like, oh, well, America has very liberal free speech laws. Of course, Facebook isn't the government and all of that, but
Right.
still our thought of just how we feel in our soul is so much different than in other countries, even Canada, and how we feel about this. So, we complain a lot more about that kind of stuff to them, but they tend to like take a more restrictive, or they used to, they go back and forth. But they're going to go with the more restrictive, one. They're not gonna look at, go, oh, you're in a one-party state, you're a two-party state. I don't know, they might, but I think I would complain to them about it being a violation of, or whoever it is at social media. But they take it and they play it and they go to, ABC7 or whatever, and it does that.
Yeah.
In all honesty, there's not a whole lot you could do, but it could be tortious interference too.
Gotcha.
If they're doing it with the intent to harm your business, then it's tortious interference.
There you go. I don't know, Susan. Maybe I am. I just remember seeing a post about some social media guy and him having a beef with the kennel and then releasing audio tape, and I was like mortified because I thought,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, now I have to be so concerned about the phone conversations I'm having with a client if I'm being recorded and
yeah. I don't
that
know.
just
Is Wisconsin a two-party state or one-party state?
yeah, Wisconsin's a one party state. So
Yeah,
yes,
no.
I was like crapping my pants. So all
Yeah.
right, the SLAPP
So,
Act, how does that
yeah, the
affect?
anti-SLAPP Act. So that's something of defamation that is, and it's very state by state. I don't know how many have them. Most, I think, do. But basically an anti-SLAPP, SLAPP, um, I forget what all it stands for, but strategic litigation, something. But they're basically, again, in America, anybody could sue anybody for anything. So anti-SLAPP is specifically towards defamation, again, because of the First Amendment. Even though it is individual parties suing each other, the government gets involved because it's in court. So that counts. So they're there to kind of protect people from suing, or if they do get sued, there's sanctions and things like that that go if it's frivolous. And it's more quickly to toss the lawsuit that was filed basically to scare somebody into shutting up. Whether it's about a public issue, which could include reviews, posts, complaints, news, and tips. So that is, basically, without that, somebody who's got the money to hire a bunch of, a lawyer or whatever to do it could file a flimsy defamation suit just to make, somebody spend time and money. So usually in any other kind of case, to get to the point of where a lawsuit is dismissed because it's frivolous is way down the line. You've had depositions, you've had motions, you've had mediation, you've had hearings, it's like usually like right before trial, there's a motion that people file that to get it dismissed without going to a jury trial, or you're going to trial. That's when you prove you're right. And that was frivolous. So anti-SLAPP is a way to have speed that process up and have that happen sooner rather than later because of, again, the speech issue and all of that. It happens early, they file it pretty early. And it's also for protected speech. So defamation and tortious interference are not protected by the First Amendment. So the court can restrict those. So again, this is a way as a defendant for you, or I'm sorry, as a defendant for them to protect themselves. They have to show that they have a really good case, not just, that, they may not, or I'm sorry, the person who filed has to show that they have a good case, not just that, hey, I just wanted to file this, throw something on a piece of paper and file it. Other cases, again, that's frivolous and you might get in trouble for that, but it's going to be a long time down the road after the other side has spent a lot of money. But if you lose it, then as the person who filed the lawsuit, not only is your case dismissed early, but depending on the state and the law, you may have to pay the other side's fees.
Hmm.
In Florida, there are the government can actually bring, like the attorney general or whatever, can bring the lawsuit too on that. And you can get fined. So it's a way to keep, speech free and from, people just filing a lawsuit just to shut somebody up and to scare them into shutting up. Doesn't mean you can't do it, just means you got to be able to only you should only file on things you can actually prove that are actually defamation and that are, not just opinion and that doesn't, I mean, the trials happen for a reason. There's a difference of
Right.
opinion as to whether it's actually defamation, but
Yeah.
it should be, because a lot of times that happens. Usually that gets decided before there's depositions and, discovery, which is exchanging information. So that means the other side's got some verifiable proof that what you're suing for is does not count as defamation. So
Well,
you want to,
Susan, if your situation is what I was just talking about, I would venture to say that you have a strong case there. Just from the little bit that I like picked off of Facebook of what he did to you. So if nothing else, might be worth that consult price for Miss April here. Um,
yeah. Well,
So
and it's better, yeah, and you might find, somebody, and I don't know where you are, but yeah, you may find somebody, also we'll talk to you, in your jurisdiction, defamation is state, even though it's First Amendment issues, it's a state thing, but defamation and tortious interference is a lot of times the problems you have with defamation and First Amendment, even though First Amendment applies to tortious interference, it's a little bit lower standard for you as a plaintiff suing, as far as, like I said, truth, opinion, all those things, really you just have to prove they're doing it, or show that the dots can be connected, that they're doing it to interfere with your business. Um, and that is, I find those are easier cases to bring and to get, quicker injunctions early on in the case to, which is
yep,
again, to get the people to shut up and retract and all that. And depending on your state, anti-SLAPP might not even apply to them. So there's that
sure.
too.
Yeah. Highly interesting. So we talked about lots of different, Facebook, Google, Yelp. I don't know too many people that are using the Better Business Bureau anymore in our industry,
Yeah.
thank goodness.
I had a
Because
really
that one,
old,
we always get threatened with that. I'm going to call the BBB, and I'm like, go ahead. I don't know of anybody that ever looks at
yeah,
that, but feel free.
I had a former
Um,
client who was like in her 80s who did that. I'm like, okay.
yeah, all the things, all the things.
Uh,
And I know that they're all, he's taking you to small claims court because of the recordings. Oh, good Lord. So one of the key pieces that I guess I looked at is I did in my case, where the woman went bonkers on me over an abrasion on her puppy,
mhm.
that she had mentioned the vet clinic in there. So then I even called them and kind of got them involved. Um, is there ever an opportunity, and this kind of mixes a little bit, so like, because when people start doing this mob mentality and they say, well, we should take her down, that then I called the police because that terminology could have meant anything, right? Like physically
Yeah,
take me down, cyberly take me down, what have you. And then the police got involved and then made that call to her. Where does that come into play then, again, as a lawyer in a lawsuit kind of thing?
right,
Because a lot of times that is what happens, right? Somebody's like, oh, we ought to do to her what she did to your dog. Okay, well, what does that mean? Like now you're threatening some form of violence.
right. So that you can get again, it's state specific, but rules about an injunction against stalking or threats and things like that if it goes too far. Those are things that you can do. Those are usually in my state, taken very seriously at the beginning. You can just based on one person's affidavit, which is the complaint basically that they file. Like you go there that day, you handwrite it out or whatever, or if you have a lawyer that files it, and you can, depending on how late you get to the courthouse, you can walk out of there with an injunction for temporary, and then they have to have a hearing with so many days. So it's basically like domestic violence, right? So it's something like
Yeah.
that. And so you can get those. There have to be cyber stalking. I found is a little bit harder. They don't, unlike the social media sites, the judges and things like that. Again, they're the government, so they do have to take it more seriously. But like uh, they tend to look at things more as actually being sarcasm and things like that. But not always. If it's credible, and it's in Florida, it's got to be, I think, two credible threats to
Okay.
you. And so each state will be different, but they're geared towards, at least initially, lay people going and doing it themselves and representing themselves because it's an emergency situation a lot of times, right? So you're going in there,
Okay.
you're getting that. So at least in Florida, there's an office in almost every courthouse that will help people walk people through that. So that is something that you can look at as well. If it's truly, a threatening, but some states have it and Florida does on the books, but I've never really seen it enforced. But even just like nonstop, like texting and cyber stalking, even
Yeah.
without a threat,
Yep.
sometimes it can be that. So that's something else you can do as well and look into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just another avenue in which to like speed up the process. Because I think that's the big thing too, is, somebody does the post and it never fails, right? It's like 8 o'clock on a Friday night, like some like shitty
Yeah.
time frame. And then you're like,
Yeah.
crap, how do I get a hold of my lawyer? How do I like, move
Yeah.
this to make it disappear faster, so to speak. So,
Yeah, and it is one of those things. Yeah, it happens very fast. First thing you can do is like instantly report the stuff to the site, whatever it is. I mean, even if you're like, well, I don't know if they'll take this down. The worst that can happen is they say no, right? So
right,
just throw everything at it, do all that. Again, get as soon as you can, do it staggered, or tell them to stagger it, but better reviews, and all that. But if it's escalating to the point of like, what Susan's talking about, like it's just nonstop and it's, doing that kind of thing, or like what you experienced, that is that could escalate to cyber stalking. You can, I don't know if the police will do anything. Sometimes they will, sometimes it depends on the officer, but again, doesn't hurt to like kind of at that point, I know it's consuming, your life and your business, and you're freaking out because,
right.
what can you do? And so, at that point you just do everything you possibly can and hopefully something, sticks. Yeah, that is. So Susan, I'm going to send you my email because I might know some people in California, attorneys who might be able to, will at least hopefully talk to you, and let
Ay,
me
ay,
put it in here because yeah, that is, I can't do California law, nor do I want to, I'll be honest with you, but
ay.
because I'd have to take the bar exam again, and I'm not doing that. Okay, so
No,
but that
absolutely.
is, but that is, something that is, yeah, I mean, I had actually, she was from Wisconsin, Chicago area, but Wisconsin, this was her license, I think, and, no, Illinois, because that's why I reported her to the bar. A former co-ed counsel who we both represented a client, and he didn't pay her, and I had represented him longer, and he made me give her the bad news that he was firing her, and she took it all out on me. She ended up suing me. She ended up it got dismissed, but she went nuts and just, yeah, just like, yeah, texts, and um found out later from her actual son that she was, on, I think it was in Adderall and uh benzos or something. Like, well, that's a combo. The Adderall explains 100 text messages, waking up to those in the middle of the night. But yeah, but yeah, so it was just, yeah, and I don't think the Illinois bar, I think, like, fined her or something like that. It was
Yeah.
crazy, but it wasn't just me. She was doing it to other people too. But that is, yeah, and it's extremely anxiety producing and nerve wracking, and I completely get that. But
You know,
unfortunately, the wheels of justice turn slowly, so you just gotta,
right, right.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think one thing too that I learned during my process is, um, as an entrepreneur, strong, independent, blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. I played the I'm a girl,
Oh yeah.
single mom, living in a house by myself. Please, Mr. Police Officer, help me make this go away. So
Oh
I
yeah,
played that.
anything. It's just, it
Yeah.
consumes you. You're afraid to check your phone. You're afraid to, like, yeah, you're afraid to wake up. I just remember that. Yeah, she was texting me so many times in the middle of the night, and just, oh, and it was like anti-Semitic stuff because our client was Israeli, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it was
Ay,
just
ay, ay.
horrible. And yeah, and yeah, Florida or the Illinois bar didn't really do much.
Mm.
But that is a yeah, so I know, and it really is all consuming, and scary because it can, even if it's not leaking out into real life, it can, with the
Yep.
way
Oh,
things are.
100%. Yeah. I want to backtrack up a little bit to
Yeah,
the employee part, and the non-disparagement with them, because that
yeah,
was something that I implemented just this past year.
yeah,
So in your employee handbook, and you said give it some teeth. Give me an
yeah.
example of like what kind of teeth we can give that.
So when I say that, I mean, like, there's consequences to it, right? So there's consequences to, if you do this, then there's going to be consequences. Now you have to kind of know your audience too, or not your audience, but the people who you're coming into an agreement with, because there's a point where somebody's, most normal people, you go, okay, well, $1 million every time you breach this. Well, you might as well, it might as well be monopoly money, right? Because
I
you're never
put
gonna,
$5,000 in mine.
exactly,
I
5,000,
Googled
whatever.
what was an appropriate number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Or, or 1,000 each time, or, whatever. It's got to be something that you can conceivably, you know, not just get, but that would be worth your while too, to,
Right.
or to go after, because you can get it. So that is, so that's usually what I mean. Don't just say, hey, don't say anything and leave it at that. Um,
Gotcha.
it would be, yeah, that, and what I find, what I always, well, of course I'm biased. There's a reason why I put this in my contracts with, that I do for people, but I always put attorney's fees in there too.
Mm.
if you're going to pay my attorney's fees or, my client's attorney's fees, if we have to sue you over this. And I put that in any kind of contract because, obviously it's, as an attorney, it helps me, but also it's a deterrent to them. If they do something, it's something you can hold over them to settle quicker or something like that, because usually you pay my attorneys if like we win, so if we settle, we don't, but it is a way to incentivize them doing what you want them to do in the first place. If you have to go after them because they don't want to pay, all your attorney's fees. Yeah.
Right.
So that's
Yeah, no,
something too.
mine has panned out really well. Had an ex-employee that um actually tagged us, which is why I even knew she posted.
We're so stupid.
Um yeah, and about how shitty the facility was and I'm a bad boss. And so I called her up and she answered, which again, dumb.
Mhm.
And I said, "Hey, so I just wanted to remind you of your non-disparagement clause. So it's $5,000 per occurrence per social media platform.
Okay,
So
good.
I'm going to give you 15 minutes to take it down. If you don't take it down, then I will send the officer over to you to serve you with small claims papers, and then we'll
Yeah.
go to court. Or you take it down, no harm, no foul, and you'll have a nice day."
Yeah. No, I think that's yeah, that is a very good thing to do. And it's very common, like I said, for current employees, former employees, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the things.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we can do if it's like the employee's mom or boyfriend or something like that? Or is that where we look at you're potentially costing me business?
Well, you could, yes, so you can do all the things we've talked about. But if you have a non-disparagement clause, you can have in there that, they won't do it through third parties either. So
Ah,
so
okay.
if you can show, and is mom really, going to, pay for this for them? So if you can show that, hey, it is, obviously you can't control, everybody, but
Correct.
if you can show that, because people like what we're talking about domestic violence, people do that in domestic violence cases all the time, like, oh, I'm not calling her, like I have my mom calling her nonstop, or my,
Right.
brother or whatever. So you can have language in there, and I always do that, you won't do it and you won't cause anybody else to do it either. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, brilliant.
Yeah.
See, these little nuggets of information
Exactly. Yeah.
are
Mhm.
all the important things that we don't know. And that's the hard part, is finding out what we don't know.
Yeah.
So employee thing is good. In our contracts with our clients, um, should we put that non-disparagement in
You
there
can't do,
ahead of
yeah,
time?
that's tough because, that's
Yeah,
the one that the FTC, I don't think any of you all are on that level that the FTC is gonna care.
right.
But, look, all it takes is one person to, get annoyed and, make some noise about it. That's the whole reason why we're having this conversation, is people can do that. So
Correct.
that is something that, they can, come after it. I've not seen them go after any small businesses that aren't also, like I said, like turn around and then suing their people for it. Like they aren't, those teeth that are in those, agreements, that they're actually, enforcing them.
Sure.
That's tends to be what they want to go after, like that. And I know there was one recent one where it was like a $25,000, penalty, and they were actually going after people for that. So,
Gotcha.
that's, yeah. So things like that. So the reality of it is if you have it there, um, it's, as a deterrent, technically, I do think it violates the law, but that said, realistically, it's not, if you're not doing anything to enforce it, then there's not they don't have damages. There's nothing,
Would it be
that is.
appropriate to put in there some sort of that they agree to a mediation before?
Yes, absolutely. You can do a mediation, you can do an arbitration. So
Okay.
arbitration is, yeah, is instead of court.
Right,
Mediation is you're
right.
gonna try to settle it, right? So you can do that. You can do confidentiality. So you can do those kinds of things. You can do a uh um yeah, arbitration or mediation, as well. Absolutely, you could do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to think of other ways that we can try and
Exactly. That's
contain
just all it
people a
means, is you
little
gotta be
bit.
creative to find a way to kinda, at the end of the day, get what you want. It might mean, a little bit more, work on your part, and if it happens, that, the workaround. But if it's something that you really is worth pursuing, then, at least you'll have that option.
Yeah. Yep.
And
So if
again,
they
if it's
do the
defamation or tortious interference, you've got that anyway.
correct. Yeah. Yep. I just always think of the person who, oh, my dog got injured today at daycare and, this is bullshit. They threw my dog in with a pack of wolves or whatever, for us to reach out and go, hey, as part of our contract, we agree to mediate if
Yeah,
you found that there was an issue. So let's take down your post and then let's come together and mediate this and
yeah.
have the conversation.
Yeah, and I think people will be a little bit more receptive to that too, because at that point they think they're still gonna, that they're
They're
gonna
going to
prevail
win,
because they
right?
think they're
Like,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I
So,
can tell you my defamation, clients, things that I've had where they were the ones being sued, it get very like, it's my right, and they take forever to settle because they just get very wrapped up in it's their right to say whatever. But those are the people who the cease and desist didn't work for, because that's how they got sued, and then they called me, so
right, right. Oh,
so those
absolutely.
my sample base there might be a little biased, for that reason too. Yeah, yeah.
Nope, 100%. Yeah, I just recently had to send out a cease and desist. So,
Yeah, yeah, I
uh,
do prefer being on the plaintiff side of those things because those people tend to be a little bit more reasonable, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had a former client who recommended my old manager's facility over mine, but then again tagged me in it. And so then I reached out to her and said, "Hey, it's great that you want to use him, but like, why are you
yeah,
pissed at me? What did I do wrong?" And not only that, but you used me 10 years ago.
yeah,
Haven't seen you in 10 years. Like what what's the problem here?
yeah,
And she's, and in her post, she said that um, the owner of XYZ facility is only in it for the money. And so I said to her, I said, "Hey, I said that was really, defamatory of you to even say that about me. We
yeah.
don't even know each other." And in her private message back to me, "Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I was just repeating what so and so said.
Ah,
And I apologize for that." I'm like, I appreciate that because I give to charities and all these
yeah,
organizations and blah, blah, blah. And then I immediately screenshotted that damn thing and sent it to my attorney. And I'm like, please handle.
yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
we've not gotten a response. We sent it 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
But yeah, so yeah, like you said, those things are super important. Screenshot. I know when I went through my big social media blast, that I just sat up all night long, literally, myself and my virtuals, and we just screenshotted anytime someone said anything remotely threatening,
hmm,
or if somebody said they were a previous client, I screenshotted that, and then I went in their profile and I said never allowed to book.
yeah.
We've had a few of them try and come back and book, and I'm like, I'm sorry, based on comments that you made
That's
about
right.
me,
I've
I'm
had
good.
yeah, that client, yeah, clients too, that like, just, rail and rail, and then, against me or whatever, and then, to my face usually, it's great, but and then, a few months later, like, "Oh, hey, do you handle these kinds of cases?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not for you, I'm not doing that,"
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That little justification that you can feel at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, exactly. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, it is a scary world out there, and you gotta do what you can to protect not just your business and your reputation, but like I said, now physically too. So all of that stuff goes to that as well. That hopefully, you're, won't come to fruition, but everybody's on edge nowadays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I need to thank you immensely. I know we're a little bit over here, but this was all great
Good. I'm
conversation.
glad.
So greatly appreciate it. I hope I see you again at another
Yes,
seminar.
absolutely. Anytime.
And anybody watching the replay, will provide you with April's contact information. As she said, even if you're not in her jurisdiction, she certainly has a network of people to
Yeah.
potentially help you out. And the
Yeah.
biggest thing is be proactive. Make sure you have things in your agreements, both with your staff and with your clients, because being proactive helps you a lot more instead of just always being reactive.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
document, screenshot, and never make assumptions. So
Yes, and yeah, always look like be the professional person. Yeah, on the record, you wanna be be the grown up. Yeah,
you can be unprofessional afterwards when you drink
that's
your
right.
glass
Yeah,
of
to
wine
to
and scream
people.
into the
Yeah,
pillow.
to your family, to yourself, in your car. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you all again, and thank you, April, and we'll see you next month for our next opportunity.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Eve.